A working pivot is a point you specify in 3D space to help you transform an object whose own pivot point does not suit your needs. A working pivot can also be used at a sub-object level to transform vertices, edges, and faces. In fact, using working pivot in sub-object mode is where it is most useful. A good example would be using working pivot to open the trunk on this car. In this case, the body of the car is a single object. To open the trunk, you would first need to select the appropriate polygon elements and then rotate them in space. The rotation base is hardly satisfactory. A working pivot is used on a temporary basis. You can only have one working pivot per scene. You place a working pivot by clicking the Edit Working Pivot button in the Hierarchy panel. You then use the transform tools such as Move and Rotate to position the working pivot where you need it. You can also quickly align a working pivot to a view or reset the pivot if you need to start over. The Reset option moves the working pivot to the selected object's pivot point. If no objects are selected, the working pivot moves to the origin of the world 0, 0, 0. You can also place a pivot in a view. This places the pivot where the mouse cursor is and reorients the pivot so its XY plane is aligned with the view. This method works well in an orthographic view but can yield unexpected results in a 3D view. You can also place the pivot on an object's surface, although this method is usually hard to control. Once set, you exit Edit Working Pivot mode. To use the working pivot as a temporary base for object transformations, you enable Use Working Pivot mode. This mode places your selected transform tool into the working coordinate system. It also instructs the transform center to use the transform coordinate center. With this mode active, you can now transform your objects or selected sub-objects based on this new transform center. When you're done, be sure to exit Use Working Pivot mode. You may find it useful to create a shortcut for the working pivot or to add an entry for it in the quad menu. You could do either through the Customize User Interface dialog. To add the Use Working Pivot to the quad menu, just drag the command next to the other transforms. Now you can toggle this mode on or off without visiting the hierarchy panel.